Hey everyone, it is I, Sleepy Reader, aka Damien, and this is a double header comic book countdown. My comic book thoughts on 2 weeks worth of new comic books. I'm going to do a list for each week because I think it just gets too overwhelming to combine both weeks. So I've got the week of February 9th and the week of February 2nd, the Wednesday, February 2nd and Wednesday, February 9th. And I'm going to do a countdown on each set. As always, super subjective based on my enjoyment at the time I was reading them, or perhaps a mixture of at the time I was reading them and me thinking back at them now as I put them out. I make little piles, and I have to say, one week, the first week, I got 14 comics, and there were 7 comics that could have been number ones. I mean, it was a really strong week. The second week, I got 7 comics, and there was one comic that was close to number one, close enough to number one. It was just an okay week. So the weeks from my pull list vary a lot, but also makes me think, maybe the more comics I get, the more good comics I'll get. But it really is a matter of refining and weeding and following creators and stuff that keeps me getting lots of good books. In the week with 14 comics, I'm actually only going to cover 12 of the comics. One I just couldn't get into. I kept trying, and it's a very long comic. Startup from Binge, I think it's called, it's hard to say what the name of this, is it Sit Comics or Binge Comics? It's the Binge Age of Comics. A company put together by a Hollywood screenwriter. I think he worked on Seinfeld and some other things, named Darren Henry. I still want to read this sometime. I think the art put me off. There's this great Sal Buscema or strong Sal Buscema cover, and then on the inside the art just feels, I don't know, it just doesn't have that weight to it. It feels a little generic, and maybe the coloring hurts it too. I'll jump in. It's the origin of this character Startup, who we already met in the Heroes Union, and they call them binge comics because it's like, are there page numbers? No, but it's like 50 or 60 pages for $5. So a good deal, very old-fashioned comics, but it just, every time I picked it up and started reading it, I just didn't want to continue. And the other one from those 14 was the Arkham City series, which I am just way behind on, and wanted to keep. I wanted to catch up with the next pile. So, and I put things, when I lift these up, what's on the bottom, that's not actually my number one, because someone pointed out that I was spoiling it when I lifted things up. So anyway, I need some caffeine. So got some evil Starbucks coffee here, the nitro cold brew. Put it over some ice, and it should help me. So let's see. Let me rearrange these piles. So starting with the week of February 2nd, the giant pile. In at number 12, much to my shock, really, was The Excellent. I did not. This is by Peter Milligan, Michael Allred, and Laura Allred, and I tend to be a fan of Peter Milligan. I never read their original series. What was it called? Was it Ecstatic, or was it X-Force? Anyway, the Allreds and Milligan did a series back, in the early 2000s or late 90s. Was kind of a cult thing with the character Dupe and all. They've come back and done some one-shots a year or two ago, which were labeled number one, and I thought the series was starting up again, and I actually liked that one-shot. But this one just kind of fell flat for me. maybe it was my mood in the moment that I was reading it, but it just somehow the writing annoyed me, and it made me almost annoyed with Michael Allred's art, which I've come to like a lot. I didn't always like his artwork, but I fell in love with it at some point in recent years and really liked his artwork, for instance, on Silver Surfer. But there's something, I don't know, the whole package just didn't appeal to me this time around. I really can't say what. All the characters seem kind of negative and annoying. I just felt kind of annoyed to be around these characters. The art looks cool as I'm flashing it up here, but anyway. So that was my biggest disappointment last week. My least amount of enjoyment was a slog to get through. Kind of just psychologically a slog was One Star Squadron number 3 of 6. I don't know whether to continue with this. I'm a fan of Steve Lieber's style of subtly humorous artwork that also has, it's modern, but it has a bit of a retro feel. And I generally like Mark Russell's scripts. His dark satires usually work for me. This one is more on the dark and less on the satire in a sense. Maybe it just cuts too close to home of the dead-end jobs that, I was lucky in the end to kind of escape from. But I've had my share of real deadening dead-end jobs over my lifetime, and that feeling that there's just no escape and everything's just going to be more and more grim, that's what he captures here and not much else. And he probably is going somewhere. Mark Russell tends to do fantastic endings. There's actually an ending of one of his series also in this pile that I loved a lot. But I just don't know if I can take it. It's just too depressing for me. I have to say, like, if I personally were to write a story about some of the dead-end jobs I was in, I would be writing about both the deadeningness of it and some of the human spirit rising above the dead-end job and the intelligent conversations I had with people who were considered dead-end people and all of that kind of thing, the camaraderie or the finding the moments of humanity in your own daily drudgery. So anyway, and then I picked up off the rack, just without knowing much about it, I picked up Primos, and I saw that there was a Spanish language version of it, and AWA is making a big deal about doing a title with Mexicano, or what's the proper way to say it? I'm looking at the editorial material at the back because both Axel Alonso and the writer of this I'm sorry. Basically a Latin American hero they're talking about how there are no Latin American heroes in comics. I think they're skipping over a bunch of heroes that came out more recently for instance, Marvel, like America Chavez and such. But anyway, this was kind of hard to get into. I think the writer is known as a comedian. His name is Al Madrigal, and he doesn't know yet how to pace a fictional story, particularly a comic book story, very well. So everything felt too on the nose and like it was aimed at little kids in a sense. And but once I sort of started to understand what the full story was, I could see there was a really cool vision behind it. Something that could be like a Jack Kirby story or something with a really large cosmic battle that then comes down to Earth for a while and sweeps up some people who have more power than they realize. So it really started to click with me a bit when we flash back to these Mayan astronauts who went in for kind of a meeting of various civilized planets to plan against some dark devourer, which was a bit generic. So there were hints of promise here. It was not gelling well, and I think it was the writer's lack of experience. I would have hoped Axel Alonso, such an experienced editor, might have helped him shape this story better for comics. It just, I don't know, what it ended up reminding me of in terms of the way it was written is I see some of these, graphic novels for kids that there's not much of the art of comics behind them. It's just for kids. We can just tell this very plain, generic story. And that's certainly not true of all graphic novels for kids, but there's some out there that just seem kind of churned out in a commercial way. And maybe this artist didn't help with that sense of it too. But, and it is, I don't know, I might be an Italian artist. It doesn't feel like it's the work of a team. It looks like this comedian came in, chatted up with Axel Alonso. They had a lot in common. He had what sounded kind of like a cool story, and he wrote a script, and they gave it to an artist. And anyway, it was okay. Making a step up from there, I'm enjoying Hellcop. So this is Hellcop number, issue 4. And it came in at number 9 for me. The story continues to be fun. I'm curious to where it's going. I'm definitely sticking with it. I'm getting used to this odd, the uncanny valley of this odd digital artwork that's in here. My brain has fought against it at times, but I'm not madly in love with it, but somehow it doesn't bother me as much anymore. I've gotten used to it. I'm just interested in the story. I'm appreciating some of the digital effects they managed to pull off, and others still kind of make me groan. But we're kind of learning more. There's certain cliched elements like the evil corporate interests taking over a planet kind of thing, but the planet is hell. It's a dimension, hell dimension. So anyway, it's interesting and fun, and I can't imagine it's going on for a lot more issues, at least this story arc, but I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going. Probably the award for most improved comic is The Thing number 4. I had a much better time reading this than the other 3 issues. I still would argue that this artist wasn't the right choice for a Thing comic, or for a superhero comic for that matter. And there still seemed to be a good bit of randomness, but it felt zingier, and there felt like the ideas were becoming a little more clear to me. And I realized that I'd forgotten that the Thing got set up with the female character here, via an app, a dating app, and that's why they were together. But now it seems like there's something behind that dating app that is going on. Anyway, it's growing on me a lot, and so I'm looking forward to more of it. I'm liking the cosmic aspects of it that are developing. I don't know how many issues this is. Again, because it's a famous writer from out of town, so to speak, a Walter Mosley, famous novelist. I assumed it was just a short mini. I don't know if they just say to be continued, not to be concluded. So it's more than 5 issues, I guess. So cool. Okay, now that was number 8. The remaining 7 I could conceive of them having come out as a number 1 in a given week, depending on who their competition was. So it was hard to rank them, but in the end I decided to put Newburn by Chip Zdarsky and Jacob Phillips in at number 7. And I think the reason I continue to enjoy it, the art may have been just slightly rushed feeling compared to previous issues. I'm not sure. That might have been my imagination. but the story definitely felt like it wrapped up a little too easily without. I wanted an extra layer to it, like an extra little twist or something, because the whole storytelling and setup and characterization has been so elegant here. I just wanted a little extra elegant twist. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. So the reason, but since I had to choose like which would come in lowest of my top 7, I picked out Newburn. I'm assuming there'll be more issues to come with just more cases that might. In fact, it ends with not a cliffhanger, but interesting new development. So I assume it's. Oh yeah, and it says the next one's for sale in February. That's odd because I actually bought this in February, so I don't know if that's because of printing problems. This came out a little later. I'm not getting much out of the backup. Not sure what happened in it. This backup seemed even more confused than the other ones. But the main story is excellent. Another excellent comic, this one coming in at number 6, maybe more for the art than the story, although the story is fine, is The Return of Manor Black. So it's Manor Black number 1, which this numbering is really problematic because this is Manor Black number 5. The story in the first 4 issues of Manor Black did not conclude, and this just continues that story. They don't get you up to date or anything. Now, luckily, in a way, it feels like you didn't need to read the last 4 issues. You can sort of figure it out that there's this, but there would be more detail about the background if you read the first 4 issues. And then we learn some new things about the possible, if I understand correctly, relationship between this patriarch of the magical family, the Black family, and ironically, this black girl who's come to their doorstep with magical powers, who the other heirs of the Black estate are kind of upset that she's suddenly showing up and getting all this training and whatnot. The super highlight of this is the artwork. I think the first 4 issues were artwork by Tyler Crook, and they were excellent, if I remember correctly. But now it is line work by Brian Hurt, painted over by Tyler Crook, and the combination of the two is an excellent combination. We were discussing, some parts are in black and white, so I guess Tyler's painted in gray tones over it. We were discussing on the Sunday chat whether this painting has been computer enhanced after he painted over it because the colors are so intense, and I don't know the answer to that, but it doesn't really matter. It feels like a 100% sort of hand painted comic, and it's really satisfying. And I guess I don't want to spoil too much, but there's hints about. I wish I could remember the name of the girl actually. One issue I've had this week and a half of reading comics is too many times where they don't repeat or even say often the name of a character. Yeah, I can't find her name by quickly glancing around here. Ari, her name is Ari, so at least they do say her name somewhere. The backstory of Ari is becoming more interesting, although still a bit mysterious. Colin Bunn, I'm finding I love a lot of stories by him, but he has I'm starting to think he has a problem with not wanting to reveal enough to the readers. And so I'm hoping that before Manor Black ends, he will give us everything. But so I'm real excited again about this series. I guess there was like a year or more since the first series. So hopefully this will continue on a steady basis because I'm looking forward to that. I've confused myself. Okay, here's another one. I put it at number 5. When I was reading, I was thinking, this is probably going to be my number 1. This is called New Masters, The Eye of Orunmila. It's a science fiction story created by two Nigerians, both of whom I'm guessing from the about the creators may now live in California, working in the animation, the world of animation and Hollywood, and video games. But maybe they do that stuff in Nigeria, video games and animation for Disney and stuff in Nigeria. I'm not sure. But it is set in Nigeria, and it's a future world where after the aliens showed up, a bunch of the major centers of Western commerce and civilization got destroyed, and so now places like, I don't know if they say which city in Nigeria it is, but anyway, cities in the world that perhaps were less prominent in the past are now kind of the centers of humanity, and humanity is kind of struggling to exist in some kind of partially so far explained loose set of different alien groups. Our main character is kind of a very advanced salvage artist going through old ruins and finding this, what's it called? Obsidium is some kind of chemical that everyone is after. It must be some kind of fuel. And she's finding places where she can salvage obsidian. And she has her sidekick robot. And I don't know, it's just all done very well. And it presents kind of a scruffy future that feels well thought out, where people are surviving in different ways. I am not sure whether they have thought out the science fiction of the solar system. Like they say, some people are from Jupiter, but they seem to be humanoid. Jupiter is a gas planet. You couldn't, if you had life there, I don't think it would be at all humanoid. But anyway, I'll give them that because they've done such a good job of creating this sort of scruffy future where, you know, people find different ways to make use of technology and the like. Kind of reminds me of some of the better cyberpunk stories in that sense. So anyway, I'm definitely going to have to add this to my pull list, and I hope it lasts long enough because it looks like it's trying to tell a big story. And if they don't have the sales and they don't get around to telling the whole story, that would be a great shame. But I will do my part. Dark Knights of Steel. I'm still loving it, and I put it at number 4. Very strong. When I read this, I thought I might put it at number 1, even though we have lost, at least temporarily. I think this might be one of those kind of take a break stories, give some more of the backstory while we use a different artist and then bring back our main artist. I'm looking for the credits because she still did the cover. The interior artist is Bengal, and I'm assuming Bengal's a he, but I don't know. He or she did a great job. Does not have a first name. It must be rough going through life without a first name. But he and the colorist, when I find I guess the colorist may be Prianto, did an excellent job, and we get a lot more of the backstory of the two families, the Waynes and the L's, and of Bruce Wayne's position in this magical medieval world. So I still highly recommend. I'm not reading all of DC's comics right now. I'm only reading a little bit of Marvel and DC. But from what I can tell, this is one of the very best DC comics coming out right now, a 12-issue miniseries written by Tom Taylor, just doing a fabulous job. Again, when I read this, I thought I would make it number 1. So I'm second guessing myself here what I really should have put at number 1. But I am coming to love more and more what J.H. Williams can do with this panoramic double-page spreads that he uses on a constant basis. And this issue took a little while to get going for me, but after the first few pages, I was being wowed again and really excited. And our crew of disparate characters from disparate fictional worlds now travels to a place called Horror Hill, which has a bit of a zombie infection going on. And the zombies, in fact, do say brains. So it all makes great use of the art team's ability to do so many different styles. The art team here is J.H. Williams and Dave Stewart on the colors. So I'm just left excited for the next issue. As I said, it took a while to get started. And it took a while to get started, and it started to occur to me, maybe with his flashy layouts don't make sense for a sort of a brief conversation. It made the emotions of the scene almost too high, and then when everyone decided to compromise at the end of this little scene, it almost felt wrong because the emotions were riding so high. But once I got past that, as I said, it still was very exciting. So yeah, this wild and crazy layout is just characters sort of talking about a few things. But then we get back into the action. So small complaint. And I think this is the end for now. Not the end, but it says there's a hardcover edition coming out June 22nd, and this is issue 6. So I'm guessing they're going to take a break till June or July, which makes sense given how the intensity of the artwork here, and then come back. And I'll take a look at the hardback in the store, but if it looks as good as I'm imagining it will look, if it's big enough, I will double dip there. And I'm already double dipping on the raw editions. Excuse me a second. I'm going to answer my wife. Okay, number 2. Ironic because I ranked one of Mark Russell's comics very low, and I have ranked this one low earlier on. It's the final issue of Fantastic Four Life Story. It's number 6. I really, really liked number 5, and number 6 on its heels I really liked a lot too. I didn't know what he could do after number 5. Number 5 seemed like the conclusion, but he managed to kind of wrap things up and sort of leave this whole Elseworlds version of the Marvel Universe in an interesting spot after he was done. So after the Galactus was finally defeated in issue 5, Doctor Doom is still there as a big problem, and it takes all the heroes of this Marvel Universe to battle Doctor Doom to possibly defeat him. And Reed Richards is in a vegetative state, but they managed to get through to him in just a small way that sort of gives us the solution to the problem. And we're left kind of with we're left with our characters in a very bittersweet position, but it makes kind of sense. And it feels satisfying despite its bittersweetness. So I don't know if I should go back and read the first 4 issues that I didn't like that much, or just be happy I liked the last 2 issues and leave it at that. Mark Russell really, I'm really noticing, for me anyway, as a reader, I'll sometimes doubt him a little bit, but by the final issue of any series of his that I've read, he pulls it all together in a way that I find deeply satisfying. So, hats off to Mark Russell and his talent for that. Because I, for instance, did not like his early in the series take on the Ben Grimm and Mr. Fantastic relationship. And I feel like he fudged it a little bit, actually, now that I think about it. At the very end here, we're talking as if he and Ben Grimm were good friends at some point, but we were never shown that in the book. And they were strangers to each other when the series started. Also, I don't know if it's Stockholm Syndrome or something, but I've started to like the way this artist draws Ben Grimm, Sean Izake. Is that an African name? I don't know. And in fact, I think I've enjoyed Sean's art better as the series gone along. And I don't know if that's because he's gotten better, or if I've shifted my perception of his art. I should dig up the past issues and read it. So those were so many good comics, from Newborn to Man of Black to New Masters to Dark Knights of Steel, Echo Lands, Fantastic Four Life Story. It feels a little silly putting this book at number 1, but I just had such a great time reading it. It's the Goon number 14. I don't even know when the last issue of the Goon came out. It might have been a couple of years ago, but this is really a one and done. I imagine, and I've only read some Goon, smattering of Goon here and there and throughout its run, so I didn't know this character that walks around with a dead duck, and this character that keeps the mummy of who is he? The mummy of anyway, he keeps some famous mummy in his house, and this duck guy has the staff of Anubis, which brings it back to life. It's just a fun romp. It's funny. It's silly. It's got wonderful art, and just a joy for me to read. And maybe at the end of the day, the funny, silly story wins for me if it's done just right, if it's really good. And the Goon is really good. And it was kind of a relief for me. I mean, they're not really the same, but the last miniseries of Gru was quite the letdown. And I'm hoping that was just because it was teamed up with Tarzan, because I know there's another one coming out. But this kind of filled that space for me, that a good episode of Gru, a good issue of the Goon can also sort of satisfy that part of my soul. So that was truly a fantastic week of comics. I read it spread over 2 weeks, and then sort of interspersed with this week of comics, there was some interesting stuff, basically. So it's in the shadow of that week. In at number 7 is Tales from the Dead Astronaut. I picked this up on a whim. I sort of assumed, I don't know if I've heard someone talk about it, I assumed it's a series of short stories with the dead astronaut as kind of a introductory thing, but that may not be what it is. I couldn't tell what it was. There seemed to be several different story threads going on, and each one of them was opaque to me. So this was not a good comic to just pick up in the middle of. So just could be my mistake. Maybe I would love it if I started from the beginning, or maybe it would be just as incoherent. It's a shame, when people can't write, and often they can't these days write comics, that you can pick up any given issue and catch yourself up. The art had moments where I really loved it, and other moments where it seemed very rushed and sort of, cheapy backgrounds put in to just hurry up, because no doubt the artist of this is, in this obscure comic from this obscure comic book company, is probably not being paid a lot. In fact, I think only the writer was listed on the copyright page, so the artist is just a hired hand. But there was some cool stuff in here. And they don't list the artist on the front cover. The artist is Jorge Luis Gabato. The writer is Jonathan Thompson. So I don't know. If someone is reading this from the beginning and says it's really good, I might look for a trade or just back issues in the bins, and because I'm curious about it. Of this week's worth, this is the Wednesday, February 9th, comics that came out Wednesday, February 9th. Of this group, that was the only one that, was totally a bummer. Everything else, I don't even get what I'm reading. Everything else was okay. Speaking of okay, was Life Zero. Since it's a reprint of a European comic, I had perhaps unfair high expectations. It says Life Zero is a Panini Comics Italy original production. So I don't know if that means they produced it in Italy, but with the eye to publish it in America too, because it's definitely in the proportions of a American comic. But I don't, I know the French comics and the like, and the Spanish comics are not in those proportions. Maybe the Italian ones are anyway. It's drawn by Marco Cicchetto, who's a very familiar artist from Marvel Comics. And this may be more fully realized art than we sometimes see from Marvel. I'm not sure. Or more digitally painted. There is a colorist named Andreas Mossa. But, so the art was fine. But if you look at it, you sort of feel like you're looking at storyboards from a movie. And when you read it, you feel like you're reading a movie pitch for a very generic zombie movie. There's nothing new or special here. There was a poisonous cloud that wherever it travels, people die and then come back to life, and then they try to eat the living. And a team of, I think, soldiers is sent in to rescue their leader, who's in a prison where everyone's turned into zombies, except for their leader. Why, I guess, would be they don't even discuss that in this issue, but that might be the most interesting thing about this. Like, why did one person not turn into a zombie? And then I'm going to spoil this issue. It doesn't spoil the whole series, I don't think, because there's not much in this issue. The helicopter that's supposed to take them away crashes, and so now they're trapped inside this large prison building full of zombies and are going to have to fight their way out in the next issue. I mean, it's just terribly predictable. And so I feel like Cicchetto's artwork at Marvel, he had much more exciting things to draw, basically. So, that was okay. If you feel like you haven't had enough zombie movies, then get Life Zero. Then at number 5, a comic I'm still trying to figure out because a lot of people really love this, at least in Volume 1. And this is Hotel Volume 2. And in my bookshelves, in the room behind that door, I have Hotel Volume 1, and I really should go and read that first. But I just keep reading more of Volume 2. And it's okay. The writing seems kind of sludgy. But there's also things going on that I don't know if they're just like a whimsical introduction to the individual story of this issue of Hotel. And the hotel is a motel, not a hotel, at least in my understanding of it. Let's see if we can get a picture. So there's 2 kind of introductory sections, and I don't know if they're like tie this into stuff from the first series. Let's see, where's the picture of the main picture of the motel? Excuse me. I'd say the art is growing on me. Well, that's weird. Maybe there isn't a picture of the motel here. Or, a full picture, maybe just a slight side angle picture. Huh. There's that little sign there, Pierrot Courts. Anyway, it's basically what I think of as a motel. Not a very large one either, but apparently it's got a swimming pool behind it. So, I don't know. It's a decent horror story, but to me it's not a standout horror story because of maybe the sludgy writing and what feel like a bunch of loose ends just flopping about. Like the first page starts with I think this is the manager of the hotel, and he's doing a drawing, which has nothing to do with the story he's telling about a goat and a tiger, like a parable. And then we switch to somewhere else, a gas station where some people have been killing a lot of people. And then they show up at the end of the issue. And then we're in the lobby of the motel. It doesn't look at all like the lobby of a motel that you would, like the exterior of it looks like. Anyway, I don't know. Okay, more exciting, but not my favorite. At number 4 is King of Spies. We got all kinds of over-the-top violence. And I love the way Matteo Scalera draws the main character. Somehow I just love the expressiveness of that character. But overall, the art seems a little more muddled, if that makes sense, especially in the action scenes. So that's a little frustrating. And then Mark Millar, the writer's utter cynicism about human nature gets to be a little, I don't know, my brain bounces. It's obviously part of this story. Like the Pope, or the ex-Pope, I guess, who helped cover up all the child abuse crimes of the church, gets to face some of his accusers, who, of course, torture him and tear him apart physically. Here's an example of an action scene. It's like there's an explosion, and somehow the son of the King of Spies, who's hunting him down, escapes the explosion. And I'm looking at the picture, trying to figure out what's happening. I guess he grabbed two other people's bodies and falls with them and uses them as a cushion for when he lands on a bus. But it really took me a while to figure that out, and I have trouble believing that that's what really happened. So it's a fun read. I just have issues in really buying into it. And although Matteo Scalera's art is great, I don't think this is his greatest work. I think more could have gone into it. So here's my biggest surprise. I picked this up kind of, again, randomly when I went to my second comic book shop to pick up something else. I saw that they had Evil Ernie issue 3. Some people had on YouTube, and my buddy Bueller had been talking. So Bueller in person mentioned Evil Ernie, and then some other people I saw on YouTube mentioning, like, really liking Evil Ernie. So again, sort of like with the Astronaut book, I said, oh, I can pick up issue 3 and understand it. And I could get into this. I guess Evil Ernie is a demon from hell. When he's brought back to Earth, he takes on someone's body. And perhaps every time he does, he is then enthralled to this evil person, this woman. I don't know if she's a witch or a demon or what have you, but she brings him back when she needs him, and he's madly in love with her, and he'll do whatever she tells him to, even though then she kills him at the end. So it's like this eternal return of Evil Ernie. And it felt almost like it was kind of a spoof. It felt kind of a Mad Magazine vibe in a fun way. I can see why people who like Spawn might like this a lot. I had fun reading it. I think my only objection was the coloring. A different coloring style would have made me like this a lot more. But I'm sure it's a coloring style that most people are really used to in comics right now. So I think any slow week I have, I'd probably pick up Evil Ernie again. It's a fun read for me. It's not my thing, so I don't know if I would go out of my way like to find a lot of Evil Ernie back issues or anything. But pretty good stuff. And then Apache Delivery Service. This, if it didn't have certain things that bothered me, I could have really loved this comic. For starters, I really like the direction Tyler Jenkins' art's taking. His, I believe, wife, Hillary Jenkins, is the colorist, and I really like her approach to the colors. It's a dark book, and she gives us dark colors, but the dark colors enhance the reading experience. They don't get in the way of it, and they're appealing to the eye. So yeah, I really like the art and color here. However, there were little things where I had to flip back pages. I had to try to figure out what was going on. We start out with a Japanese naval captain in World War II, and he goes and buries some treasure in Vietnam. And then we have some people talking about hunting down that treasure. And I just assumed it was in fairly modern times. And we have a scene of one of the characters having picked up some hippies who are wandering around Asia to get information from them. So even though they're hippies, I kind of thought we were in present day, or certainly after the Vietnam War. And it took me quite a while to realize we were right in the middle of the Vietnam War. And I'm not sure hippies would have been wandering around that part of Asia during the Vietnam War. And our hero is not Apache, he is Navajo. And he has a reputation for being good at killing the enemy, I guess, but he says he doesn't. And he says he's Navajo, not Apache. And then the other thing that sort of threw me off and had me trying to figure out things is this character who's looking for the gold looks only slightly different than the Japanese admiral or captain who hid the gold. And I got confused a number of times there. So as I was reading this, I was trying to figure out, are we during the Vietnam War? Are we in some other war? I'm pretty sure we were during the Vietnam War. They never mentioned the Viet Cong or South Vietnam or North Vietnam or anything like that in here. But other than that, I enjoyed it. And it doesn't feel, this is, by the way, written by Matt Kint. It doesn't feel like a deep story of characterization. It feels like a story of mood and a treasure hunt, But there are seemingly no good guys and no bad guys or anything like that, although maybe our Apache delivery service, our friend the Navajo, his name is Ernie Nez. Maybe Ernie Nez will turn out to be kind of our hero. But I enjoyed reading that one. And then in at number 1, another one I enjoyed reading was Norse Mythology. And this one is about Thor and... So there's an undersea god, but he will only serve the gods a meal if they bring him a cauldron big enough to brew beer for everybody in that cauldron. And there's only one cauldron in the world big enough for that. And it's at the castle of the giant Hymir, who is sort of related by marriage to Tyr. So Tyr and Thor go to his castle, and a lot of Norse mythology business goes from there, like an insane fishing trip and other stuff like that. The art is very interesting by David Rubin. I think it's a little departure in style for him, and I enjoyed it quite a bit, but he did his own colors. And at times the colors were very satisfying, and at other times the colors kind of, I don't know. I wasn't sure whether I liked the colors or not. And this has happened all along in Norse mythology, but it seems particularly egregious here. The story ends in what seems like, or this issue ends, what seems like just a few pages before the story itself is supposed to end. We're getting near the climax of the story. They just put 20 pages of Norse mythology in here. Probably the next issue will have the end of this story and the beginning of another one. And they don't even say to be continued or see you next issue. It looks like, the next issue will have both David Rubin and Colleen Doran. So there'll be all of these are put together by Neil Gaiman and Pre Craig Russell, then with different artists on each story. So it looks like the next issue will get the end of this story and then a Colleen Doran drawn story. So it was fun. It was good. But if it had been in the previous week, it might have come in at number 6 or number 8 or something like that. So anyway, all very satisfying. I see I have not gone very quickly, 48 minutes, but 48 minutes while reviewing or giving my thoughts, not reviewing, on so many comics, not too bad. Some of you know that I sometimes bid on original art at heritage auctions. They sent me this really hard to open package, and it had this book in it and this letter, and they say, "With pride and gratitude, we enclose your copy of the 2021 Signature Year in Review, celebrating a year in which heritage auctions surpassed 1.4 billion in total sales." I assume that's the total sales the gross, not their cut, which would be like probably 30% of that 1.4 billion. But I might be wrong. So the COVID has given them record sales. This book looks back at just some of the highlights we have been privileged to offer at auction in 2021. I don't know why. Why would they think I, who've bought a few pieces of original art with them, would like to celebrate how much money they've made with a special catalog showing some of the highlights of their big sales of the year? I think I'm particularly offended because it cost a lot of money to print this and mail it, and it's like a giant piece of junk mail. I don't know. Maybe I'll do a flip through of it. Only a small part of it is comic book art. Oh, look, they even sell wines. Actually, I have some friends who buy wine in advance, and it's like a speculative thing. If the wine turns out to be really popular, you sell it and make a lot of money. Anyway, I've heard about that for the first time this year, but I suppose it's probably been going on forever. Oh, there you go. I don't see any comic book art in here in a quick flip through. Pokemon trading cards, movie posters. Is that an old baseball card maybe? I don't know. I guess they assume that their clients are just interested in collectibles and will think it's exciting to see what kind of collectibles were popular this year. I can't find any comic book art. Oh well, it just seems it's like a corporate thing. They might give this to their stockholders if they have stockholders or whatnot. I don't know. People they want to invest in them. So anyway, that's just neither here nor there. I will talk to you all soon, and I hope you guys had some good weeks of reading comics. I know there's lots of videos coming out from me, but I just can't help it. I had most recently did a chat with Eric from Long Box Review. He's from the podcast Long Box Review, all about the first 6 issues of Aerosmith, which is now finally coming back from Image Comics, written by Kurt Busiek and Carlos Pacheco on the art. And that was a ton of fun chatting with him. And I feel like I've been doing other stuff too. I did a sleepy vlog. On Rasa's channel, we did our Sunday chat. This coming Sunday, it will be on my channel. It might just be me and Rasa. If you're interested, if anyone's still watching at the end here, if you're interested in joining us on a Sunday, roughly 11:30 a.m. Pacific Coast time, let me know. Like if you want to come on the show and talk about what you've been reading. But anyway, I'll talk to all of you later. Bye-bye.